What first stunned Hollywood is now unraveling into a story far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Investigators have narrowed a critical window of time, and what they've uncovered has shaken even the most seasoned experts. The incident didn't happen suddenly. It wasn't a moment of impulsive panic. Instead, authorities believe it was the culmination of tension and emotional strain that had been quietly building beneath the surface for months, if not years. And while the details are shocking, the night that led to the tragedy may have begun much earlier than most realize. At a festive holiday gathering hosted by none other than Conan O'Brien. At that Christmas party, several guests noticed Nick acting tense, unpredictable, and oddly detached. While others mingled, laughed, and enjoyed the evening, Nick lingered on the edges of the room, hoodie pulled tight, scanning faces and asking abrupt questions that left people uneasy. An awkward interaction with Bill H. escalated tension just enough to catch the attention of those nearby. Michelle tried to smooth things over, while Rob quietly observed, hoping to de-escalate. But insiders would later say that this was the spark that set the tone for everything that came next. That seemingly ordinary night was already on a path that no one at the party could have foreseen. After the party ended, Nick returned to the Brentwood area. On the outside, he appeared calm, deliberate, and controlled in every movement. Surveillance footage shows a man who seemed composed, paying for a hotel room quietly, and heading up to his floor without attracting attention. Yet, investigators and those close to the case point out that this appearance of composure masks something far more unsettling. According to sources, he secured the services of Alan Jackson, one of the nation's most high-profile defense attorneys, almost immediately, allegedly using family inheritance funds. The speed and confidence of that move raised eyebrows, hinting at someone who was already thinking several steps ahead. Between midnight and the early morning hours, investigators confirm, the incident unfolded inside the Brentwood home. There were no signs of forced entry, because none were needed. The individual involved had full access and familiarity with the residents, which made the situation all the more troubling. Security records later placed Nick at a Santa Monica hotel around 4 a.m., roughly 20 minutes from Brentwood. Staff reported nothing unusual. No distress, no phone calls, just a quiet man sitting alone. Even as hours passed, concern turned into alarm only when a scheduled visitor arrived at the home and found no response. When authorities finally entered, it became painfully clear that this was not a sudden, isolated incident. It was the final act of a night that had quietly unraveled in a way no one could have predicted. Early surveillance footage from that evening paints a chilling picture. Around 9 p.m., Nick was captured at a gas station near Exposition Park, buying a sports drink. His movements were restless yet controlled, his eyes scanning the surroundings, giving the impression of someone caught between composure and inner turmoil. Just 15 minutes later, LAPD officers, working with U.S. Marshals, detained him nearby. There was no resistance, no explanation, only a young man who appeared emotionally drained rather than panicked. Forensic estimates later suggested that the victims had been deceased for several hours before discovery, deepening the mystery of what truly led to the breaking point that night. Investigators have pieced together a troubling timeline. Reports suggest Nick may have attempted to clean himself either at the scene or later at the hotel. Surveillance cameras tracked his movements throughout Santa Monica that morning, showing someone methodical yet distant. Experts point out that the object involved in the incident was likely taken from inside the home, ordinary and easily accessible, further underscoring the degree of familiarity. Initially, authorities assumed a single act had occurred, but forensic analysis revealed multiple serious injuries. Professor Joseph Scott Morgan explained that repeated injuries suggest deliberate, controlled actions rather than a sudden emotional outburst. This was sustained behavior, executed with proximity and awareness, not panic. As attention turned to the legal dimension, public scrutiny intensified. Nick's rapid hiring of Alan Jackson sparked questions about funding, particularly because the attorney is known for taking only the most complex and high-stakes cases. Multiple sources reported that the Reiner estate, valued at approximately $200 million, allegedly covered legal fees. Surviving relatives reportedly believed pursuing a mental health-based defense was the most humane path forward. A decision made amidst layers of legal complexity. While California law prevents a convicted individual from inheriting from victims, it does not automatically block estate executives from using funds for legal defense, a nuance that has fueled both debate and speculation. Court proceedings added another layer of intrigue. Nick appeared in a blue inmate uniform, standing beside Alan Jackson in a courtroom devoid of live cameras. The first hearing ended swiftly, with Nick quietly waiving his right to a speedy trial. The judge granted a delay of the formal arraignment, setting the next date for January 7th, leaving the public waiting for the next chapter. Meanwhile, experts began analyzing the defense strategy, speculating that addiction, mental health, and long-term instability could play a role in arguments about intent and emotional capacity. Nick's personal history casts a shadow over the courtroom drama. Born in 1993, he began experimenting with substances at just 15 years old, initiating a cycle of rehab, relapse, and family intervention that spanned decades. Rob and Michelle Reiner reportedly provided ongoing support, even allowing him to return home in hopes of stabilizing his life. Attempts at creative projects, such as Being Charlie, offered brief periods of connection and hope. Yet despite treatment, therapy, and family supervision, instability persisted. By 2018, significant property damage during a relapse signaled the fragility of recovery. By 2020, he returned home again, a cycle repeating itself until the night of the tragedy. Friends note that in the months leading up to the incident, his behavior had grown increasingly unpredictable, making the evening's outcome tragically plausible. The night itself, as reconstructed by investigators, began with mounting tension on the drive home from Conan O'Brien's party. Nick reportedly accused his parents of embarrassing him, and while Rob tried to calm the situation, the confrontation intensified once they returned home. Forensic specialists believe that sometime between midnight and the early morning hours, Nick entered the master bedroom where his parents were resting. Details of the act remain disturbing, but experts emphasize that it reflected extreme controlled behavior rather than a sudden loss of control. The ordinary beginnings of the night, combined with years of underlying struggle, transformed a family gathering into a catastrophic tragedy. The aftermath shook Hollywood to its core. News spread first as whispers, then as confirmation. Social media was flooded with tributes and expressions of disbelief. Attention quickly shifted to Nick, his mental state, and the warning signs that may have been missed. Old interviews resurfaced, including one in which Nick described the pressure of fame, saying, "I feel like I was born into a spotlight. I never asked for that." The quote took on painful resonance as the public and investigators tried to reconcile a life of privilege with an unfolding night of chaos. As authorities pieced together surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic material, the timeline became chillingly clear. The pattern of escalation, from the party to the drive home to the home confrontation, revealed a deliberate sequence rather than a random incident. Experts described it as a perfect storm of emotional volatility, unresolved trauma, and long-term instability. Even high-profile guests, including Conan O'Brien, released brief statements expressing sorrow and disbelief, underscoring the gravity of the event. Nearly a year later, the story still dominates headlines, serving as a haunting reminder that fame and success cannot shield anyone from personal struggles. As the case continues, every new detail raises more questions than answers. Public fascination remains high, with analysts suggesting that the trial may not begin until late 2026 or early 2027. Forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and eyewitness accounts point to deliberate behavior and awareness, and prosecutors emphasize the sustained nature of the incident, the imbalance of age and power, and the deliberate decisions leading up to it. For the public, the story is both shocking and tragic, a glimpse into how family, fame, and personal struggle can collide with devastating consequences. In the end, What makes this case so compelling and so tragic is how quickly ordinary moments spiraled into irreversible events. From a Christmas party filled with laughter and hope, to a quiet hotel room and a home in Brentwood, the night shows how layers of mental health, addiction, and family pressure can collide with unexpected and devastating results. Hollywood watches, questions, and reflects, and the story serves as a chilling reminder that even the most privileged families face the same emotional fragility, the same complex human struggles, and the same heartbreaking consequences when underlying tensions go unresolved.